kid? Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Handsome Homebuyer podcast. My name is Charles, aka the Handsome Homebuyer, aka Captain Permit aka
El Judío Maravilloso,
aka bring it in, bring the egg sandwich in, aka the 2020 LLS Man of the Year. Is that bacon, egg, and cheese? No, that's hash brown, egg, and cheese. I need the bacon, egg, and cheese. Beautiful. All right. Big week. A lot of stuff going on today. I want to talk a minute about how you're in the grind, you're visualizing, you're trying to get it done, things are going right, and then all of a sudden, not that everything's going wrong, but shit just isn't happening. And you're just like driving like shit, it's not happening. Until yesterday when shit just started happening. Awesome meeting for a monster development deal, biggest one we will do to date. I don't want to say we got it yet, but I feel in my soul that it is going to happen. We finally got an accepted offer on another development deal we've been working for 6 months. This commercial development shit takes a lot of time. Didn't know exactly what I was getting into, but it's a process. You figure it out. I'm used to the whole like flipping houses. Someone calls me on Wednesday, I buy a house on Friday, but this commercial thing is time, it's work, it's effort. So if you're in the grind right now working on anything, you just gotta keep the faith, keep it moving, and eventually it'll start to happen. Speaking of someone that always makes it happen, Maddie, you know who always makes it happen? Captain Permit. 516-513-8838. If you need plans, if you need permits, if you need anything building department or permit related, we got your back. We're talking about legalizations, CO searches, interior alterations, building a house, doing commercial fit outs, you name it, we do it. We do it all across Long Island. We do it with the best team in the business. We got Dennis, the code and permit expert, who'll be at your house looking at everything, knowing exactly what the towns want and need. We have Steve, draftsman to the stars, doing his thing like nobody else can. We have my brother-in-law Ryan in the field, measuring, dealing with the townships, best beard in the business, and I argue anybody to say differently. And of course, we have the man himself, the most handsome man in the permit world, Mike Auito. By day, he's crushing permits and defending you against the building department. By night, he's crushing heavyweight, and nobody looks better doing it. All right. So big day today. We have 2 podcasts today, and we're going like totally different ends of the spectrum here. This afternoon, we're on our way to the city to interview the man, the myth, the legend, Seth Pinsky, former head of the EDC under Bloomberg, appointed by Bloomberg, did unbelievable things, Hudson Yards, and many others. This morning, I had this awesome concept when I was in the shower. I think I had just gotten out of the shower when I text you. Oh. So I said to myself, a lot of people are hitting me up, and I have a lot of newbie people that hit me up, and they're like, listen, we want to know what you're doing, how you're doing it. And I remember when I was getting into this game about 5-6 years ago, I had a ton of questions. And I was like, where do I go? What do I do? How do I start? Everybody around me is like, you can't do it, kid. You're out of your goddamn mind. So I'm like, you know what? I want to bring somebody in here who's very near and dear to my heart, who wants to get into the game, who has a network of people that also want to, and I want them to collaborate before coming in here, and then we would sit down and discuss the mindset of someone that is just getting into this, how you start, what's the process, and he put together a list of questions about different things in the real estate world, and we're going to hash it out right here. So this is an episode for 2 people, newbies, and those can be men and women, and also for the ladies. For a couple different reasons. And I might say this. Everybody knows that I am Jewish and Italian. Not that Jewish is a nationality, it is a religion. But if you ever had any question in your mind, if I was Italian, that question is going to be answered today. And the answer is, hell yes, I'm Italian, when you meet today's guest. So today's guest is a bona fide hero. Right? We were just talking, he's like, yo, I'm on the Handsome Homebuyer podcast. This is freaking dope. And I'm like, listen, he doesn't know this, but I'm honored to have him on the Handsome Homebuyer podcast. Okay. He's a family member. I would argue to say we look alike, only he has better hair. Similar personalities.
Yeah, I would say that.
FDNY member. Thank you for your service, sir.
Oh,
as a matter of fact, ladies, future FDNY calendar guy, and you know what I'm talking about. So if you weren't there, you're gonna have to go there now.
Yeah.
Delivered a baby this morning in a Prius on the way over here. True story.
Well, I didn't pull over and deliver. I was at work, but yeah.
You still delivered a baby this morning.
It was fun.
My cousin, James Auito.
Pleasure.
Brooklyn born and raised. We're taking it back. It's good to have you here, man.
It's an honor. It's a complete honor to be in headquarters right now, man. I watch all your videos.
It's cool that we get to spend this time together.
I know, man. I always look forward to coming here.
So, a little bit of background on you. How old are you now?
Just turned 23.
23 years old. Crushing life. Loving it.
Trying.
Hustling. So, James has got one of the most unbelievable work ethics, which is another reason why I brought him on today. For those of you who are old like me and 40, you would remember the show Living Color. So there was a Jamaican guy on Living Color, and his skit was that he has 47 jobs. I would argue that James is the Italian Brooklyn version of that.
They call me half Jamaican, half Mexican.
How many, you gotta edit that out, bro.
They do,
that
though.
You gotta edit out.
They all do, though.
What was I gonna say? How many jobs do you have? What do you do?
All right, well, I do FDNY EMS at a Station 4-3 in Coney Island.
Okay.
I do a side gig, which is I'm a step below sound engineer for one of the top wedding DJs in the tri-state area, Alex Edge.
Nice.
So I do a lot of setting up, running the sound, then breaking down, driving all over. We've gone to Boston, Maryland. He does gigs all the way out in Milan, Jamaica, Cancun, so it's a pleasure to be part of his crew. I help my brother out with his side renovation business. I'm actually, right after this, going to help him finish up this bathroom we've been working on this week.
You're a volunteer for Levittown Wantagh Fire Department.
Wantagh, Levittown, yes.
So, I mean, and I watch your Instagram stuff. You are literally
Everywhere.
24/7.
Yeah.
Like 4 o'clock in the morning, you're like delivering babies, and then 12 o'clock noon, you're like building a deck.
Yeah.
The point is here, people. It's all about the work ethic. Like, you're very successful at what you do. I have no doubt you'll be very successful at anything you try to do moving forward in the future. And I think a lot of that comes down to your work ethic and what you do. And I'm curious to know, actually, even though we're related, where your work ethic comes from.
Definitely my brother. I learned firsthand. We both started working at about 12 years old. We worked, not construction, but like landscaping for like a sports complex. And I just always saw how he never complained. He's always did what he was asked. And I really admired that, and how everyone respected him, how everyone always told me, oh, you should aim to be like your brother. Even the station I'm at right now, my brother was at previously, and they all said I have big shoes to fill, especially coming up then. Like, he always went the extra mile, and like just never complained about it, And I always thought maybe I could even take that a step further. He works multiple jobs, Maybe I can work multiple jobs, and I can even top that, add 2 extra side hustles, Well, on top of the side gigs I'm working in my free time at my house, I'm also working on, like even eBay, flipping things on eBay, Yeah, any little side hustle. I love the entrepreneurship of it, Like, I'm a big Gary Vee fan, so like, just like any little side hustle, just to add that extra income, so you add more and then you could be saving more. Really interests me, and I'm really just trying to get ahead of everybody, especially at this young age.
What I'm curious. I mean, obviously, being like when I was growing up, they didn't have YouTube, they didn't have any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So how influential has people like Gary Vee been in your life, and just YouTube and social media in general that allows you to get gain the knowledge in just a click?
Oh, 100%. I mean, when I'm at work and I have some off time where we're posted or whatnot, I'm either watching his videos, Dave Ramsey videos, Stephen Graham videos, just anything just to learn something, I'm always about improving myself and just becoming a student. I wasn't that big when I was in high school. I wasn't too interested in learning anything there, but I find that like there's so much more value out there, especially with like real estate or just side hustles or mutual funds, just anything where I can get ahead of the game, just learn something of value, even if it's like cooking videos or like handyman videos, just something where I can add something to society.
So you mentioned before that like in high school you were just like you were a kid, you were having fun, you're messing around, you're enjoying your childhood.
Oh, yeah.
What was there a moment or an event or something that happened that kind of triggered you to be like, you know what, now it's time to get serious?
Yeah, right after high school, I think my first breakup like really inspired me to like better myself.
Fucking women, man.
I was like, you know what? I was like, fuck this. I'm gonna better myself. So this way, later on, they'll be checking the Instagram out and they hit you up later. You know, it's like, oh, how you doing? I see you doing well without me, whatnot. You know?
Yeah, listen, whatever sparks some motivation. But breakups have, and I mean, listen, I'm in a similar situation. I mean, I had a very, very, very bad breakup like 3 years ago. So my first year flipping houses, I did 10. My second, I did 11. Mm-hmm. My third year, we had broken up. It was end of July, and I had bought 10 houses at that point. And then from the time we broke up to the end of the year, which was 5 months, I bought 30 more houses. Because it was just like, bury your head, just raw emotion. You have to do something with it. And, it could go a bunch of different ways. Thankfully for us, it's positive. We go into work. Unfortunately for some people, it goes, drinking, drugs, whatever. Yeah. But if you can channel that energy into something.
100%. It's all about that grind. Again, you're going to have a lot of energy build up. Mostly probably going to be anger. And then why not just use it to your advantage? I went really heavy into the gym. And that's actually how I became a personal trainer. So I added one job on top of that back then. And then just started putting into work too. I was working 70 plus hours a week back then when I was 18.
So as someone that's 23 years old who it sounds like you're intrigued by real estate.
100%. But
it's not like have you settled on like, oh, I want to invest in real estate. That's like my passion. Or you're thinking about stocks. You're thinking about everything. Are you trying to just figure it out?
Well, real estate is definitely something home and dear to me. Like I learned a lot with construction, working with my brother, and I just the aspect of building something out of nothing and then flipping it, like I don't know, it's just like a high. Like I'm sure you can relate to that.
Oh, it's a super satisfying feeling, man. I mean, to create and build anything is unbelievable. To be able to look at something that's a total piece of crap that stinks like cat piss.
That's my favorite slogan, by the way. If you have a house that smells like happy.
Smells like happy. And then watch it and then have the vision and see it. And see it for what it is, but like be able to see through that to see what it can be. And then have it realized, especially when everyone's like, what are you doing? It's an unbelievably gratifying feeling. There's no bigger high in the world than that.
Yeah, plus Dave Ramsey always says like the biggest purchase you'll ever make in life is your home, is property. And that's the biggest turnout in terms of income if you can flip that. Like the biggest risk has the best outcome. You understand what I'm saying?
People aren't mean. Sorry. No, 100%. So now you're in the stage where you're trying to figure it out. You want to get into real estate. What's your biggest, what do you think yours and newbies in general, people that want to get into real estate or any investment, what do you think their biggest roadblock is?
Probably money. Because you see people that don't have a lot, especially in their savings, and they hear get into real estate, but when they try to really look into it, people don't have $300,000 in the bank just to risk to put on a property. I think that's one of the biggest ones is trying to save up to have enough to buy a house in cash instead of using lenders or anything like that.
All right, so let's discuss that for a minute, right? So and it's cool that you brought that up because that's the number one thing I hear. They're just like,
I don't have enough money.
Yeah, when I go to do teaching events and stuff like that, I'm like, listen, everybody, who here thinks that they would be doing real estate deals if they had the money? If they only had the money, I'm like, everybody, raise your hand. I say to them, listen, the easiest thing in this business is the money. Getting the money is the easiest part of what we do. The hardest part of what we do, believe it or not, is contractors, especially plumbers, right? Contractors are the most difficult part of what we do. And obviously, finding the deals is hard. But so I want to basically, I guess that's an urban legend. Let's break this up right now. The money follows the deal, right? There's a ton of money available out there on the street. It's everywhere. As a matter of fact, there's way more money on the street than it is people like you or me or Matt R Visual who have a vision and work ethic and are able to make money for other people. So if you're able to just communicate that to other people and get the deals, you won't have a problem. The money will come to you. I think the thing that everybody really needs to do is get an education, a really, really solid education up front. And I think a lot of people don't have your work ethic, and they kind of want this, it's an instant gratification society where everybody wants it yesterday. People come up to me and they're like, Charles, I want to do what you do. I'm like, I'm going to tell you. I'm like, you go see Carl Chavone, You go to the East Coast RIA meetings, you do this, you do that, you invest at least a year of your life and study, and then you do it. And they look at me like they fucking shrink. Like I just like...
Because that's the boring part. Nobody wants the process, they just want the goal.
Well, yeah, it's like, listen, bro, like at 30, I just turned 40. At 30, I didn't know anything about real estate. Started grinding. And it's like, here you are, the 10-year overnight success. Like, that's a real thing.
I remember in your podcast you actually said, like, you studied for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, before you ever
made a deal.
Before I ever did it. I studied for between 3 to 4 years. Then I went out to try and get a house. It took me a year just to get my first house. Mm-hmm. And then it played out literally to the dollar of what I thought it was going to, which was, proof of concept at that point. But all that preparation set me up for what I do now and what I'm going to be doing.
You don't want to go into anything blindly. And I remember the first time I actually ever had a discussion like this with you. You recommend reading Rich Dad Poor Dad before I even stepped foot in terms of real estate. And it really is true. I rather, and I told you I wanted to.
Did you read it?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, I'm actually moving on to the Chris Hogan book right now, trying to finish that one up right now. But I believe it's better to become a student of the game before jumping into something so blindly. That's why I'll ask you, not for tips, but I ask you more for literature. Do you recommend any podcasts? Do you recommend any articles? Do you recommend any books that I could read? Because I feel like learning is the biggest key to all this, not jumping into something blindly. And I even said for the next 2 years, I just want to focus on studying and learning as much as possible, and hopefully by 25, 26, purchasing my first property.
No, which is awesome, and it's good to have the short-term goals and the long-term goals. And you're one of the only people I know who's willing to commit to the process in order to get there. Most people
gotta love the process, man.
Bro, you got to be. I mean, it's just ironic because people look at me and they're like us. I'm like, you're not going to spend a year of your life and $5,000 or $10,000 to train with someone who's going to basically change your life forever, but you'll go out there, spend $300,000 or $400,000 of your money and other people's money to possibly get crushed because you don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really make any sense. I know that you put a bunch of questions together of things that you want to know about and discuss. Mm-hmm. Hit me. What do you got?
Well, the first thing I first was curious in terms of real estate is it better to get into the flipping game or better to have tenants and get into the rental game? But I remember you said something as the point you buy to rent. So there's a couple different things there.
And this is a big thing that people always say to me, I want you to map out the path of how we do this. And I'm like, listen, I need you to understand that everyone's path is uniquely their own. Mm-hmm. Just because I did it one way doesn't mean that that's the best way. It's based on who I am as a person, what motivates me, what gets me turned on. I have a certain type of personality that I need quick, dynamic craziness. I had flexibility in my job. I left my job to do this. I have no family, meaning I don't have kids. I'm not married. I had a certain situation. So what I always tell people when getting into real estate is dial it all the way back and say, what kind of life do you want to live? Right? Have we had this conversation before?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. What kind of life do you want to live? Bring it back to the basics, because everyone's different. How much money do you want to make? People I want to make a lot of money. What's a lot of money? To some people, $100,000 is a lot of money. To some people, $20,000 is a lot of money. To some people, they need $30 million a year. How much time do you want to spend with your family? How much time do you want to spend with your kids? Do you want to have kids? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do? Real estate is awesome because it could be as small or as big as you want. It could be a side hustle that helps you, take your family on a vacation. It could be how you save for your kids' college degrees, and it could be something that makes you filthy rich and everything in between. So you have to figure out what drives you and what you want your life to be like. And then to take it a step further, you have to say, okay, what's the goal? For me, originally when I started, I was I want to have a REIT. So now it's morphed into private equity, and that's okay. The plan can change, but I was all right, how do I do that? I'm all right, I need people to invest in me so that I can have a REIT. Well, people aren't just going to start giving me hundreds of millions of dollars. I have to prove to them that I can make money. How do I do that? Well, I'm all right, well, I have X amount of dollars. I could start flipping houses, and then people will invest in me, and I'll make some money, and then year one I want to do 12 houses, then 24 year two, then 36, and then I'm doing multifamily and I'm out. Mm-hmm. And that's not exactly what happened. I've done a lot more houses than that and stayed in the game a little bit longer before transitioning to commercial. But that was my path because that was my mindset and those were my goals. So to get back to your point, it all depends on what you want. Like, flipping is great, but it's a job. I mean, it could be a high-paying job, but it's a job because the moment you stop selling a house, the moment you can't find a house to renovate to sell, you don't make any money. Yeah. Whereas if you have a rental property, there's a ton of great tax benefits to that, and just as long as it's rented, money is coming in.
Well, those are my two concerns. Like, say, one, you don't have a tenant, or two, they don't want to pay. So that's kind of like the added stress that like kind of drifted me towards flipping houses, you know. And plus, like, what if you do have a tenant and they are paying, but they're destroying the property, and you constantly have to keep fixing it up?
Yeah, well, you know what it is. It's like, so there's obviously risk involved in everything you do. Mm-hmm. Zero risk, zero reward.
100%.
But they're calculated risks, and you assemble a team. You get the education, which is what you're doing, and then you build a team of people with the knowledge that are going to help mitigate those risks. Like, we have a lot of rental units at this point. We have like very minimal to non-existent problems. Why do we have non-existent problems? A, we build a beautiful house and we treat people with respect. Mm-hmm. And really, like, if you treat people with respect, 99% of the time they're going to treat you and your property with respect. That's one. Two, I have an excellent rental agent who just has this, she's bilingual. She has this like street savvy where she can just look at somebody and say, this person's going to pay their rent or not. So her and I are so close that I don't even meet the tenants anymore until they're moving in. Like, she makes the decision and I just show up. Okay. That's how tight we are. I also put together criteria. So if you're a tenant who's paying cash, you're not a program tenant. We'll get into that in a minute. If you're a tenant that's paying cash and you're going to rent from me, let's say I'm renting you a house in Mastic for $2,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Your household has to net 3 times that amount. So after taxes, your household has to generate $6,000 a month, or you can't rent for me. Because I know that there's other things that need to get paid for, and I want to make sure that you have enough money coming in to pay the rent. Now, people would say, Charles, that's freaking nuts. Who that makes $6,000 net is going to rent your house in Mastic? And the answer to that question is, I don't know, but there's a shit ton of people that want to, so I'm not concerned about it. There's always people that want to rent. We go in and we do quarterly checks. Well, actually, no, every 4 months now. So every 4 months, Leo goes out into the field and he inspects the properties to make sure that nothing's broken. If something's broken, he fixes it. The tenants know, like, yo, this guy is on point. Mm. And lastly, we do a lot of like government programs, Section 8, CDC, etc. So you hear horror stories about that, but like it's not accurate. It's blown out way more than it really is. Because you got to think logically about this. Listen, these people waited 3, 4, 5, sometimes 7 years to get on this program, to get possibly all their rent paid, plus HEAP, plus food stamps, plus whatever else. They're not going to jeopardize that and trash your place for no reason and get thrown out of the program.
I mean, yeah, but like working in Coney Island, especially the Coney Island projects, we see that all the time though. They completely destroy some of these apartment complexes. But that's the
but I would ask you, okay, they have to be screened a certain way. B, are they actually paying rent, these people?
I hope so.
Or is it like free housing?
I hope they're paying rent. I mean, it's probably someone, I really don't know. I mean, it's probably free housing.
Okay, we'll get into this also. Forget about that for a minute. We're talking on a percentage basis. Mm-hmm. Like, how many apartments are you talking about? Like, thousands, right? There's a shit ton. It's huge. Yeah. The projects are huge, right?
100%.
On a percentage base, I'm sure when you have that many units, you're always going to get the 1, 2, 3, 10, even if it's, 40 people that trash it. But when you're talking about 5,000 units and 40 people, it's such a small percentage that you can't let those few negative experiences ruin the whole thing for you.
But I feel like they also kind of like ruin the reputation of the place as well, though, because like you walk in some of these places and there's like needles on the floor over there, there's piss stains. Like, I'm talking about the entrance.
Yeah.
And like it kind of just ruins the whole like integrity of the place.
But this is government this is like NYCHA housing, right? Like government owned housing, where who knows if they can afford to upkeep these places. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about you. We're talking about you buying a house, renovating it beautifully, and being a good, attentive landlord and taking care of your tenants. That armed with an attorney who does a really nice lease, with a rental agent who understands the dynamics, with you understanding the people and knowing the people that run the programs like CDC. Because these people have caseworkers. Like if you have a problem with a tenant, you can contact the caseworker and the caseworkers get involved. Like it's not a hands-off type of scenario. The only program that I found that I don't really love is DSS, like a straight DSS.
And
So,
what exactly is that?
Department of Social Services.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
So the difference is, like, if you're going through Section 8 or CDC or like HUD-VASH or one of these type of things, they have a lease directly with you as the landlord. Whereas DSS, what they do is you have a lease with the tenant and they're just subsidizing. But what happens, which they don't really tell you, is a lot of the times after like the first year or after a certain period of time, they stop paying all of what they were paying before. So let's say they were paying full boat on the rent. They pay by the number of people in the house. They don't pay by the number of bedrooms, which is what everybody else does. So they put people in the house, they start paying you, and then all of a sudden a year later they're like, I'm like, yeah, the rent's got to go up. They're like, yeah, no, we were paying you $1,900, but now we're gonna pay you $1,500. Get the rest from the tenant. We're like, yo, the tenant's unable to work. Like they don't work. How are you gonna get money? I don't know. Not our problem. Your problem. Well, when they have to leave, the lease is up. They're like, all right, I guess you got to evict them then. Like there's no responsibility at all. And if you call DSS and you want to talk to them, they're like, oh, we can't talk to you. We have to talk to, the tenant. And they're just, my experience with them hasn't been great. So that's what I would encourage people to stay away from. If you have a straight DSS tenant, just know what you're getting into. Okay. But with the right team, it's very successful. We have, on Section 8 CDC, this is what I will tell you. Of all the Section 8 CDC tenants we have, and we have a lot, I've never had to evict one, and not one of them has ever trashed my place. One prop I will give to DSS, the one DSS tenant that I had to evict when I learned this whole charade the hard way, messed up the apartment a little bit. They came down, they videotaped it, and they cut me a check. And we fixed it. So I have to give kudos to them for that, but otherwise I don't love the way the program is run.
So how would someone, that has some interest in real estate, or a lot of interest in real estate, again, no prior experience, and they're just learning, how would they, file for Section 8 housing, get involved with that?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So what, to have a tenant in there?
Yeah.
So if you want to get involved in rentals, this is what I suggest you do. So CDC has something called a landlord forum.
Okay.
Where you can, once a month, and you have to be diligent. Like, if you call them once, sometimes the guy doesn't call you back because he's busy, because he's also like an inspector or this or that. Yeah. So just call him every day, and then once a month they have this thing called the landlord forum, where you come in and they put this movie on from the 70s with some dude with a weird porn stash who looks like Ron Jeremy, and he explains to you the program. And then one of the heads of the CDC is there, and one of the head inspectors is there, and you can ask them all types of questions. And what they do is they'll also give you the rent breakdown. Okay. So they'll tell you how much they're going to give you if you pay all the utilities for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom. And then they're going to give you a utility deduction sheet. So depending on if your house has electric heat or gas heat or whatever it is, it'll show you how much comes off that number to what your net is as the landlord, because the tenant is getting money from them to pay the incidentals like the electricity and shit like that. Mm-hmm. So now you have that information. Why do you need that information? A, you know what you're going to get paid. So you could go out into the market and start making offers on things because you have concrete numbers and know what you're going to make. Mm-hmm. You also can build the house to certain specs. Like, we build the houses using electric heat. Why do we use electric heat? A, electric baseboard is cheap. So, and if it breaks or somebody crashes one, it's like $100, we throw one out. We don't have to maintain it. And you get more money for your place in most places than you would with oil heat, because oil's more expensive. You don't have to worry about the oil being empty and the freaking, pipes blowing up. You don't have to worry about any of that crap. So these are the things that you want to prepare yourself to learn. As far as getting your house approved for Section 8 or whatever, it doesn't really work like that. You advertise the house, or the realtor advertises the house, and these people come to you with vouchers. So they're like, I want to rent your house for X amount of dollars. We have a voucher here that's good for a portion of it. I mean, another really big thing, CDC just bumped their own rents in October 15% in some cases. So like where I was getting $2,030 for a house, I'm getting like $2,300 for a house. I didn't do that. If someone's paying you cash, you can't go to them and say I want like $300 more for a house in Mastic. They're gonna laugh at you. It's never gonna happen. Plus, the Section 8 tenants are awesome because they tend to stay a lot longer. Like the average CDC Section 8 tenant stays for 7 years. The average regular tenant, like my regular tenants, maybe 2 years.
It's a nice cash flow too.
Yeah, it always comes. The check always shows up. There's no story. There's no lateness. There's no nothing.
Okay.
And if you have a problem, they will pay for it.
So you mentioned how you have like a very good team. Like obviously looking around, like you have like a pretty nice all-star. So what keys or characteristics would you look for in like members to assemble a team, especially someone that wants to start up like a group of people they want to like bring together in order to like start up a business like this?
Okay, so you're talking like from a partnership standpoint, you're talking about you're building your professional team.
Yeah, like a professional team. I know you need attorneys, I know you need accountants,
Yeah.
I know you need a realtor.
Yeah. So you a couple different things. So you interview these people. Mm-hmm. And Carl, who was my mentor, the first conversation I ever had with him, like I put a list of questions together and I interviewed him and I grilled him for an hour because I wanted to know if I'm going to invest my time and my money in you, I want to make sure that you are legit. Mm-hmm. So you put together a list of questions like you did here and you ask them. You say, what is your experience? What have you done? What would you do in this scenario? And they should be okay. If they're not okay with that, then they're not the right people for you. They should be okay with that, and they should be pumped because then they know like you're a real person who's organized. Like you might not be like where you're going to be today. Like you might be a beginner today, but those are the signs of somebody who's going to be big.
Yeah, I was gonna say like what do you normally look for in a person? I'm assuming it's just like that grind,
You know what it is? As far as a person goes, like when you get to be 40. Right? The bad part about being 40 is you can't eat ice cream anymore, right? The good part of being
you're saying that
part about being 40. Are you listening to the last podcast?
Yeah.
About Matt Virgil's hammer?
Yeah, Deadpool costume, and how you can't eat ice cream anymore.
Yeah. So the good part is that you get like this feeling, right? You have it innately because you're from Brooklyn. And Brooklyn people, we know shit. We have street cred. My 3.5 years in Brooklyn is what gave me the street cred I have now. You've been in Brooklyn for 23 years.
Yeah.
So you have a lot more street cred. So you have this feeling about people. Like you go with your gut. Mm. You interview them, you talk to them. But like I hire less for talent, I would say, and more for mindset, work ethic, etc. Because what I do here is kind of like unique and funky. So you're not going to meet people who like coming off the street who are like, yeah, I know. Like when Mark came in here, he had an awesome background. Mark is our CFO. He runs all of our financials for all the businesses here. He was an IRS auditor. He worked for First Data as a credit risk analyst and ran a team. But he didn't know how to run like a flipping rental permit business operation. Like it's a really small niche. Mm-hmm. But he is a grinder. I trust him. I love him. And he did whatever he takes and does whatever it needs to take on a daily basis to get it done. So it's like, it's a character thing. It's a feeling thing.
Chase that grind. I know, man. One thing I was always curious, in your experience, obviously you've been doing this for quite a bit. What are some of your biggest mistakes? Like, how can one go into real estate the wrong way? Besides, like, lack of knowledge. Like, I guess, like, is it, like, instinct, like, real estate fever, like buying too many properties at once? Like, what are some of the things that you wish, if you went back, knowing what you know now, you would do differently?
I wish I would have done it sooner.
That's right.
I wish I would have gotten my plumbing license when I was 21 years old.
You know what's funny? When I was 18 and you had... my brother and I helped you out with one thing. I forget what. I think we were digging the pool.
Oh, we were filling that insane hole in the ground. It took like 3 days.
I remember you told me, you're like, you want to make money, become a plumber. You can make easily $500,000 a year.
Bro, being a plumber is the greatest thing ever. If you can like get a plumbing license, get a plumbing license. I'm telling you, anybody who's listening to this podcast right now, get a plumbing license. Tell your kids to become a plumber. A plumber or a surveyor, these things will be virtually extinct in 10 years. There aren't a lot of people that are going for these type of things. So, I mean, mistakes. I haven't had luckily, knock on wood, I haven't had a lot of catastrophic mistakes because I had a tremendous amount of education and I invested in the process before I ever got into it.
Okay.
So that is something that can keep. I mean, listen, crazy stuff happens all the time, and you learn during the process. Like I bought a house. I always say this, I bought a house in Gilgo Beach that was supposed to be a crazy score, and by the time we were done with all the shit that went wrong, I made $1,200. Right, so I bought a house for $275 and sold a house for $625 and made $1,200. Right, but if you prepare, I'm lucky to come out with $1,200.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the education, like, dude, I can't stress the education and the preparation enough. I think the biggest mistake that people make is they don't get the education, and they make emotional decisions. This is investing. You can't fall in love with a house. You can't over renovate a house and think you're going to get a lot more money for it. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It is very numbers. You have to be able to like detach yourself from the emotion when you're investing in anything, and you have to be willing to walk away if it doesn't make sense.
So typically, like, what is your strategy in terms of like buying a property then?
As far as what?
Like, I guess like making an offer.
What's my so how do I figure out what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
Like okay. So at this point, I mean, I can do like back of the envelope. I like know it in my head at this point, but there's a formula for it. When you train with guys like Carl or some of these other guys, they'll teach it to you. It's maximum allowable offer. So what you do is you say, okay, you start with what you do the research, and the research is not ask a realtor. Okay, this is in no disrespect to realtors. I know thousands of them. I love them, but if you're going to invest $300,000 in something, you can't rely on somebody else telling you what it's worth. So you have to have the ability, either you become a realtor or you get access to the MLS data or whatever, you get data in your part of the world, and you figure out, okay, I think the house is worth $400,000. Not like between $400,000 and $450,000. That doesn't work.
Are you talking about before
number.
You fix it or after you fix the ARV?
After, yeah. So the after repair value, you figure that out first. And then you deduct all the costs associated with buying, holding, and selling it. Like I budget for a 6-month period. Other guys might budget for a 9 or a 3, whatever it is, right? You budget, you remove all that money, including your profit, whatever you want your profit to be, and everyone's profit is different. Everybody's happy with a different number. And then whatever's left over, that's your offer. And it can't exceed, that's your maximum allowable offer.
I was actually going to ask as well with the ARV, like what's like your bullet points or your like your checklist to like figure out that number? Is there like
the after repair value?
Yeah.
So that's like as much an art as it is a science. So, and I'll tell you, you have to like be in the market looking at the data, and you feel it because you understand. And it's like funky things like you have to look at everything involved in the house, and you have to know that, okay, if I'm looking at a house in Levittown, I know that there's a ceiling, or I know that people want certain things like square footage, different sizes. You have to know that if you're on a main road, your house is going to sell at a discount. How much of a discount? Because someone could buy that same house 2 blocks away on a nice road, like on a quiet road, that's going to sell for more money. If your house is on a corner and doesn't have a, doesn't have a backyard, it has a side yard, it's going to sell for less. What if it's on both a busy road and a corner? What are the psychological barrier points in that market? Like, are people, houses are really hot up to $450, and then after that, the people there aren't going to spend that kind of money. It doesn't matter how big the house is, how nice the house is. These are things that you learn when you do something called norming the market. So what you would do is this. You go out into Levittown, let's say, and you go to 10 open houses, and you make notes. And you say, okay, this house is priced at this, and it has in-ground sprinklers, it has hardwood floors, it's in this condition, it has a real backyard, whatever. It's this square footage, cool. And you do that with 10 houses. And you start to see, like, okay, where does the house you're going to want to invest in or make an offer on stack up against that, so you know how to renovate it. And then B, when those houses start to sell, you look at them and you say, okay, these are where these things are selling. So you see what the comparable sales are within the last 6 months. Right now, I'm looking at houses that have sold in the last 3 months, but what I'm really looking at are houses that are under contract in the last 90 days that haven't closed yet, because the market is changing.
What do you mean by that, though, under contract?
So if you go into the MLS Realtor database, you can look at houses that are under contract off the market to be purchased.
Okay.
So a house gets listed for $399, it goes under contract, it hasn't closed yet, but you can see that it's off the market under contract. You can see how many days it was on the market. That's giving you an indicator because the market is trending down right now.
And nobody wants the house.
And not that nobody wants the house, but since the market's trending down, the historical data from 6 months ago isn't as relevant. So if you were getting $425 for a house 6 months ago that closed, a house that's under contract today might be under contract for $399 because the market's trending down. And you could buy houses when the market's trending down, but you have to be ahead of the curve. So if you know, like yesterday it was selling for $4, but today it's going to sell for $375, or in 3 months when you're putting it up for sale, it's going to sell for $375. You have to budget for a $375 sale, and that's why today I would look at the under contract houses.
Huh. So like, I know like your slogan again, like if you have a house that smells like cat pee, and I see like your videos on Instagram, like complete hoarder houses, like a car in the lawn or whatever, you know, like what characteristics do you look for a property when you're purchasing them, or are you just you're just purchasing anything you really can get an offer on?
I mean, I'll pretty much buy anything that makes financial sense. So in past years, everything I was buying was just a total shithole disaster, and we were doing gut renovations. As the market's changed, I've had to adapt. So there are situations where I'll buy a house, just close on it, and put it right back on the market and sell it for more, because the numbers don't make sense for me to renovate it because of the way the market's moving. So to answer your question, you have to have an open mind. Some houses you have to do gut renovations on. Some houses you can't. You just like the spread's not there, so you have to do like a quick lipstick job. But that doesn't mean that you're doing a shitty job. It just means that, on this house you can just paint it, clean it out, do a kitchen or do a bathroom or whatever, and be able to make the spread. So as the market changes, you have to adjust with that.
Have you ever purchased properties where you completely start from level one, like completely tear down the whole entire thing and start from the foundation up because, say, like the foundation's fucked up?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, we just built a house on the water in Freeport from the ground up. It had a new bulkhead when we bought it, but we just built a new construction house.
You wouldn't recommend that for, obviously, someone new into this game, correct?
You know what it is? Like, for as much as I know nothing, right? So for whatever I'm going to tell you and the world here right now, it's not gospel. I mean, in an ideal situation, it's better to get into a house that has a decent spread, that doesn't have a crazy renovation, so that you can assemble your team together and that you can understand the process. Because for as much as you like plan and study, you're not gonna know everything until you get into it. But with that said, listen, if you've done a lot of research and you know that it costs $125 or $150 a square foot to build a house, and you feel confident that the house is going to sell for X, then do it.
Okay.
Do it. But just make sure you do your homework. Like, if you have a friend that's a contractor, you have a relationship with a contractor, and they're like, hey, listen, let me show you numbers. We just built this house. Let me show you the house. It cost me $125 a square foot. It's going to cost you $150 a square foot, and it makes sense. You do it.
So, like you said before, like some houses just do like a quick, lipstick job, like you said. So, in terms of like advice, like I've seen a bunch of videos where people say like, oh, picking this type of lights, like LED lights for this type of setting, is better for cost efficiency, or like different colors of paint, or just like appliances. Is there anything like you would recommend in terms of that when you're just like a quick little fix up, like in terms of saving costs? So
it really depends. It's, again, you go back to norming the market, right? You see what's selling in the market and for what amount of money. So when I do stuff like that, like I bought a house for X, picked it up, put it back on the market, cleaned it out, and sold it. Now, it's selling for $100,000 less than a renovated house within that area, and the person that's buying it is happy because they didn't have the money to buy one of those houses, and they can fix it up the way they want to over time. So it goes back to norming the market. You got to see, like, what are the houses that have sold, look at the pictures, try to go into them and say, at this price point, what does the house have to look like? What's my competition at this price point? And then that's what you do. You build to that or like slightly above. You don't go crazy because you're just wasting your money.
So are you ever like frugal with your renovations, like trying to cut costs with certain things, or you just like go full with it because, again, better integrity behind it, better foundation? This
is a balance. So we're building to the market. So if I do a lot of first-time homebuyer houses. So that means in Nassau, it's houses that sell for under $550. In Suffolk, it's houses that sell for under $400. So we're using builder grade type stuff. We're not using like, Viking. We're not putting Viking appliances in there. Mm-hmm. We're not going to like the tile shop and getting like $50 square foot tile. But that's what the market needs at that price point. But we don't cut any corners. Like, they're full gut renovations. They have all new plumbing, all new electric. It's like, drop your bag, don't do anything for 20, 25 years. So, but I mean, the house we just put back on the market, the person's having a home inspection. Like, they know what they're getting. Mm-hmm. But the price makes sense for what it is.
So what would you recommend, again, for newcomer, for people, again, who's fresh into this industry, in terms of construction? Like, I know a lot of people's like, oh, I want to get into real estate because I'm a handyman. I can do the renovations myself. Are you highly against that, or you think you should contract out and have like more of a reputable, like somewhat more experience, I guess?
So it really depends on, everybody's different, right? So if you and your brother are very handy people, you can build anything. Mm-hmm. If the two of you get together and say, hey, we're going to do a house a year or 2 houses a year together, and we have our other jobs, but like we have time to do it, and you're like, we'll save the money, but we can do it efficiently in X amount of time, and you enjoy doing it, then cool. You can't do construction work yourself and scale. Yeah. But also think about this, like, what's the highest and best use of your time? If you're swinging a hammer, you're not looking for your next house. If you're swinging a hammer, you're not looking to raise money. You're not getting more education. You're swinging a hammer. Mm-hmm. So, like, it comes more down to, like, highest and best use of your time.
Well, also, yeah, like you said, wasting time, but you're also wasting money, too, because the taxes, whatnot, and the insurance also that goes with it. So, I mean...
Well, it depends on how fast you can get it done. Like, if you and your brother together can get it done in the same amount of time that a contractor can get it done, you're okay. Mm-hmm. But, if you're borrowing money at 10 or 12 or 15% or whatever it is, and it takes you 6 months more to do the house, and you spent, $25,000 more in carrying costs that you could have given to a contractor and been done with the house sooner, then it would have made more sense to do that.
One question I had about your construction cost. You said you were in Home Depot for 2 days and you're just writing down numbers with the phases. I wasn't really sure what, if you could give a better explanation.
Oh, okay. So I was trying to think of it. So I would go with the guys at the beginning. I would meet the guys at Home Depot at 5:30 in the morning, and we would load up all this stuff, and then we would go to the job site. And I did it every day. Mm-hmm. And to come back to our previous point, highest and best use, it doesn't really make sense to do that. Like, it's not the best use of your time. So I tried to get efficient at that point. So I went to Home Depot and I wrote down every SKU number for everything that's in there. So I'm like, okay, plumbing elbow, 45-degree elbow, SKU number this, and this is what it is. And then I organized them into phases. So at the beginning, I did phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 is the material you need before you have sheetrock, and then phase 2 is the material you need after sheetrock. Yeah. So I would go with Leo at the beginning, and we would go there and we would check off and fill in how much, and then I would send Home Depot that SKU sheet that I made, and then they would do the delivery. So we had one big delivery for phase 1, one big delivery for phase 2, and the guys could fill in with stuff that they needed, but at least I didn't have to go to Home Depot every day and load a truck up with shit. Yeah,
7 different times. I can't tell you how many times we've done that.
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
That's actually very impressive, actually.
It's a waste of time, man. It is. So those are the things that you start to learn, like, only when you're in the process.
Mm-hmm. So your previous video, I think it came out last week or 2 weeks ago, about finding deals. Everyone keeps asking you how to find deals. You said realtors, attorneys, auctions, whatnot. How do you, I guess, initiate a relationship with realtors and attorneys and all of them, and how do you maintain that relationship with them? Because I feel like everyone's out kind of for themselves. So, I mean, how do you maintain a relationship like that, where you guys are kind of helping each other out?
It's the same way you maintain a relationship with anybody else. Like, people are very short-sighted, and, I mean, you go to an open house, so you're an investor. First thing you should do is you should develop investor criteria, right? This is one-page sheet that says you want to buy this kind of house in this kind of area. This is who you are, quick bio. Even if you haven't done anything, like, hey, my name is James. I'm a fireman. I do this. I do that. This is what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to buy houses in these areas, whatever. You go in there with your business card and your investment criteria, and you introduce yourself to the agent. Hey, listen, this is something that I'm doing. I see that you have this house that stinks like cat pee. I'm going to put an offer in. Or this one's not for me, but if you get something else like this, call me. And you get their card, and then you follow up with them. You go on social media. Like, this is what I did. This is slightly creepy, but not. So when I meet people, I get their card, then I go on social media, and then I find them and I friend request them, and I like kind of weave my way into their life because they see me every day. And then periodically I'll reach out to them or whatever, or I actually care and think about people. So if I know that I'm having a conversation with a realtor and the realtor's like, whatever, I'm looking for this, unrelated to real estate, and I have a friend or know somebody who does that or can help them, I'll help them. Like if you do the right thing by people. Here's another really big thing that investors don't do, which is the stupidest thing ever. If a realtor calls you or emails you with a property, like you're going to go meet the realtor's like, damn, this guy's good looking. He's got the tattoos. He just delivered a baby. He's freaking jacked. Like, I want to be around this guy, right? And then they send you an email with a property. And then what you do is you don't like the property, but you never call them and you never respond. Nothing is more annoying for a realtor or a person if you
constantly.
Bro, you get it, you call them right up. You say, listen, a guy called me this morning, right? I think I might have a property for you. I'm like, I don't think it's going to work for me, but let me check. I'll call you back in 15 minutes. I called him back in 15 minutes. I said, listen, thank you very much for thinking of me. This isn't why this one's going to work for me, and this is why. Please think of me on the next one. Really appreciate it.
That's big, too, because a lot of people try to avoid confrontation, so a lot of people don't really have that skill either to tell people kind of how it is.
Yeah, but, like, most people would rather hear the truth. Like, I don't care what you have to tell me just as long as it's the truth. Right? So just tell me, like... And then they know, so they'll start to learn. They'll be like, oh, like this dude called me up. He's like, I got this house in Old Westbury. It's like it's $1 million. I think it could sell for 1.7. Now, I don't like that stuff because anything above 550 in Nassau is not selling. People don't want to buy $1.7 million houses with $50,000 in taxes right now. They don't want to do it. So I said, hey, listen, really appreciate it. Staying away from the luxury shit because it doesn't make financial sense. People aren't buying them. It's a sluggish market.
Okay. In terms of now, say like you have your property, you're fixing it up, you know, you're ready to sell. What would you, in terms of advice, like keys of selling? How would you go about that? Like
keys of selling the house?
Yeah. Like what advice would you offer us for that?
Make sure you have a really good product. Make sure you have a good agent that's selling it. Make sure you take quality pictures. It's clean. Make sure the pictures are clear. Make sure the description is adequate to what you're selling. Make sure that the agent is doing open houses. You know, utilize social media and other things like that, obviously, to get the word out. But ultimately, for all the bullshit, the house sells itself, and it's all about the price. Yeah. Anything sells and sells right away at the right number.
I feel like I'm sure a lot of people ask you, too, like, how do I get the cheapest deals?
Like when you buy?
Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, I ask people who are actually interested in real estate as well. I was like, any questions? Because I'm meeting,
the Handsome Homebuyer.
Yeah. And they're like, how do they get them so cheap? How do they get them so cheap? You know,
it's all relationship based. So it's like, I know tons of realtors, I know tons of people, I know tons of attorneys, whatever, wholesalers, etc. And you're just making offers. You're like out there. I have a force of people that are making offers and bringing me deals, and I'm looking for it myself. So you go out there and you know your numbers. You say the house is worth $400. This is what I have to buy in order to make a profit. And I'm not looking to like buy an island and retire somewhere off one deal. I'm looking to make a living. And you make the offers. And if you make enough offers, you're gonna get properties. And then people just bring you stuff they're just like, listen, this is what it is. This is the number. Do you want it? No one else is gonna see it. Like I have those relationships now because people want to do business with people they like and people they know are gonna deliver.
100%. I wish I actually wrote more questions because I think you're on a time base too as well.
No, that was good.
But like I said before, even in interview, like it's very underrated what you're doing online, man. Like again, like as I was saying, people make a lot of bullshit videos for 17 minutes talk about the American dream and they have to do this in order to buy properties for $0 and they'll become millionaires next week. And the fact that you break it down like that's made writing questions so hard actually. Because it was hard to come up with them. Because you self-explain pretty much everything about it, man.
But it's about the redundancy, and I appreciate that. And listen, you're my cousin. Obviously, I love you. You're related, right? Eric Braun and I might be related from last week's podcast. I'm still not 100% sure, but I know that you and I are related. And listen, I love you. I love what you're doing. I appreciate and respect your work ethic. Keep your grind up. I wish at 23 years old that I had... you know, the drive and determination that you had. I didn't realize that until I was in my 30s.
You gotta love it. It sounds very cliche to say, but a lot of people that's 23, they kind of want everything handed to them, and they don't really want to work for it. A lot of people I talk to, they're just like, I don't want to go to work. I don't know. I love the grind, man. I love doing things that people don't like doing. Like working until 3 a.m. off of one gig and then going straight to work right after that at my other job, you know? And I like posting on social media because everyone's like, wow, you're always moving, you're always going somewhere, and nobody wants to do it, man.
Yeah, and keep doing it, man, because you'll start to get a lot of traction off of that. And obviously, like, you know, we're family, you know I'm here for you. If anybody out there has any questions, you know you can hit me up on social media. Maddie, you know who's also always here for you when you need him? Captain Permit. 516-513-8838. You need plans, you need permits, legalizations, new house builds, anything, give us a call. Obviously, I'm the Handsome Homebuyer, so if you have a house that smells like cat pee, has been dated from the 1960s, has 6 inches of mold on the wall, human waste floating past the basement steps, land, commercial development, you name it, if God created it and it can't be moved, I'm quick, I'm easy, I'm all cash, I'm a good time, I want to buy it. 516-777-SOLD. That's a wrap.